Most men grow up believing one thing about dating: youth wins. More energy, more attention, more opportunities. But psychology suggests something far more interesting and a bit uncomfortable. As men get older, something unexpected starts to happen. Quiet advantages begin to appear. Subtle shifts in behavior, changes in mindset, a different kind of presence. The truth is, older men in dating often develop qualities that younger men simply don't have yet. And these hidden advantages older men have in dating can completely change the game. In this video, we're going to explore the psychology behind 8 hidden advantages older men have in dating and why many men only understand them much later in life. If you're a man who wants to understand attraction, psychology, and personal growth on a deeper level, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. We're building a community focused on real masculine development, and we're currently on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So your support genuinely helps us reach that goal. Topic 1. Emotional stability is extremely attractive. There's something interesting that many men only realize as they get older. Emotional stability is quietly magnetic. While younger men often react impulsively to texts, arguments, or small frustrations, older men tend to move at a different pace. They don't panic over silence, they don't assume rejection right away, and they don't lose their cool easily. Without even trying, that calm attitude communicates something powerful: emotional security. And for many women, that's incredibly attractive because it signals they're dealing with someone who knows how to handle life. Think about a simple situation. A younger guy sends a message, and if she takes a few hours to reply, his mind starts racing. Did she lose interest? Did I say something wrong? But a man with emotional stability understands something experience teaches pretty quickly. People have lives, schedules, and different priorities. He keeps focusing on whatever he was already doing: working, hitting the gym, meeting friends. That small difference completely changes the dynamic because it shows his life doesn't revolve around someone else's validation. And here's something people rarely talk about: emotional stability creates natural mystery. When a man doesn't overreact to everything, he becomes harder to predict. Not because he's playing games, but because he's genuinely comfortable with himself. A mentor once said something interesting: the man who controls his emotions controls the environment around him. And interestingly enough, many women pick up on that almost instinctively. But this psychological advantage becomes even more interesting when we start looking at how older men deal with validation. Topic 2. They are less desperate for validation. As the years go by, many men start to realize something that once felt impossible: living without constantly needing approval from others. When they're younger, it's common to try to impress people all the time with money, status, exaggerated stories, or by trying to seem more interesting than they actually are. But time teaches a quiet lesson. When someone tries too hard to prove their value, they're usually trying to cover up insecurity. Older men, on the other hand, often lose that urgency. They understand their value doesn't depend on someone else's immediate reaction. You can see this in small, everyday behaviors. In conversations, for example, he doesn't feel the need to dominate the discussion just to appear smarter or more successful. He listens, observes. He responds calmly. Instead of trying to impress, he creates space for genuine connection. Interestingly, that attitude often creates far more interest. It's the kind of quiet presence that makes people think there's something different about this guy. It's not effort, it's natural. A mentor in men's behavioral psychology once explained it in a very simple way. When a man stops chasing validation, he starts projecting value without saying a single word. Imagine 2 men walking into a social setting. One tries to grab attention the whole time. The other is relaxed, talking to a few people, laughing naturally, clearly comfortable in the environment. Most of the time, the one who sparks curiosity is the second guy. And that lack of need for approval ends up creating another powerful advantage many men don't notice at first. Something that comes directly from life experience. Topic 3. Experience creates social intelligence. There's a type of intelligence that rarely shows up on diplomas or resumes, but it completely transforms the way someone navigates relationships: social intelligence. And the truth is, it almost always comes with time. Older men have already been through difficult conversations, relationships that worked, others that failed badly, awkward dates, strange encounters, and moments of genuine connection. Every one of those experiences quietly teaches something about human behavior, something no dating guide can fully explain. For example, a more experienced man starts to notice small signals younger men often miss. A shift in tone, interest showing up in someone's eyes, the energy of a conversation changing when there's chemistry, when there clearly isn't. Instead of pushing when he senses disinterest, he naturally shifts the topic or gracefully ends the interaction. That avoids uncomfortable situations and, interestingly enough, creates a far more respected social presence. He's not trying to force anything, he's simply reading the room. An old social psychology professor once said, "Experienced people learn how to listen to what isn't being said, and that makes a huge difference in relationships." While some men are still trying to memorize complicated attraction rules, others have developed the sensitivity to understand what's actually happening in the moment. And as that ability grows, another trait naturally starts to emerge in these men's lives, something that begins to change the way they lead their own lives. Topic 4. They usually have a clearer sense of purpose. There's a huge difference between a man who's still trying to figure out who he is and a man who has spent years building direction in life. Over time, many older men start to understand something that completely shifts their posture in the world. Purpose creates structure. They've tested different paths, changed direction a few times, faced failure, learned from it, and slowly started building something solid, whether in their career, business, or personal projects that truly matter to them. That clarity shows up in simple ways. When someone asks about his plans, he doesn't respond with confusion or uncertainty. He usually knows where he's heading. Maybe he's building a business, growing in his career, investing in personal projects, or simply organizing a life that gives him more freedom. That sense of direction communicates something powerful: leadership. And psychologically speaking, leadership is one of the most naturally attractive traits in any social dynamic. Now think about the difference between two scenarios. One man spends most of his time trying to impress people around him. The other is focused on building something meaningful, training consistently, developing professional skills, or investing in personal growth. Interestingly enough, the second man often becomes far more attractive without even trying, because when someone has a clear path, their energy changes. And that shift in energy also changes how they deal with conflict, emotional games, and unnecessary drama. Topic 5. They don't get easily manipulated by drama. Over time, many men develop something that doesn't come from theory, it comes from experience. They've seen arguments start over small things. They've been part of conversations that turned into unnecessary drama, and they've noticed how certain emotional patterns repeat in different relationships. After going through that enough times, quiet skill starts to develop. The ability to recognize when a situation is about to turn into emotional manipulation. A more experienced man doesn't immediately react to every emotional comment or provocation. Instead, he observes. Sometimes he changes the subject. Sometimes he responds calmly, and other times he simply refuses to engage in the argument. That doesn't mean he's cold or detached. It actually means he has emotional maturity. He understands not every battle is worth fighting. And interestingly, that attitude often stops drama before it even starts. Imagine a common situation. A conversation suddenly becomes filled with accusations or exaggerated interpretations. A younger man might jump straight into the argument, trying to prove he's right. More experienced man tends to do something different. He slows the conversation down, asks a simple question, or lets the topic cool off before continuing. That ability to avoid getting pulled into emotional chaos completely changes relationship dynamics. When a man learns to stay calm even in tense moments, another powerful trait naturally begins to develop. Topic 6. Patience becomes a powerful advantage. One of the biggest differences between younger men and more experienced men shows up in something most people overlook: patience. When a man is still learning about relationships, he often wants everything to happen fast. Quick replies, fast progress, clear signs of interest right away. But life, and especially experience, teaches a very different lesson. Real connections rarely move at high speed. They grow slowly through shared moments, conversations, and small interactions that build trust. Older men tend to understand this much better. They know they don't have to rush every conversation, every date, or every stage of a relationship. Instead of pushing for immediate results, they allow things to develop naturally. For example, instead of trying to schedule constant dates or sending messages all day, they keep a balanced rhythm. They continue living their own lives, focusing on their projects, and leaving space for interest to grow organically. Interestingly, this patience creates something many younger men try to force but rarely succeed at: emotional tension. When someone doesn't seem desperate for immediate results, interactions feel lighter, more natural, and even more intriguing. The other person begins to notice that this man has a full life happening beyond that conversation. And that calm presence often sparks curiosity. But there's an even deeper reason this patience exists. Something that comes from the real experiences he has accumulated over time. Topic 7. Confidence that comes from real-life wins. There's a kind of confidence that simply can't be faked. It doesn't come from motivational quotes or quick tricks someone learns online. That kind of confidence is built through real-life experiences, challenges faced, mistakes made, difficult moments overcome, and small victories accumulated over the years. Older men usually carry that kind of history with them. Even when they don't talk about it, that confidence shows up in the way they move through the world. Think about something simple: posture, tone of voice, the way someone walks into a room. A man who has faced challenges, built something for himself, or survived difficult moments tends to carry a different kind of presence. He doesn't need to announce his achievements or constantly try to impress people. His confidence is quieter. It's the calm mindset of someone who knows he has handled difficult things before and can probably handle whatever comes next. Interestingly, people often sense that confidence without it being explained. It's almost like a different energy in the way someone speaks, makes eye contact, or positions themselves socially. A mentor once said something powerful: real confidence begins the moment you stop trying to prove who you are. And men who have lived through multiple stages of life usually understand that very well. But after all these experiences, one final hidden advantage begins to appear. Possibly the most powerful one of them all. Topic 8. They are comfortable being themselves. After years of trying to fit expectations, impress people, or prove their value to the world, many men eventually reach an interesting point in life. They simply stop pretending to be someone they're not. And there's a huge sense of freedom in that. Older men often understand they don't need to perform all the time just to seem interesting. They already know what they enjoy, what they no longer tolerate, and what kind of people they truly want around them. That authenticity shows up in simple behaviors. It doesn't drastically change his personality just to please someone. It doesn't fake interests he doesn't have. And he doesn't constantly compete with other men in the room. If he enjoys talking about business, sports, books, or life experiences, he does it naturally. Dare. And interestingly enough, when someone feels comfortable being who they really are, interactions become much lighter and more genuine. A personal development author once said, "Real maturity appears when someone realizes they don't need approval from everyone." And maybe that's the most silent advantage of all, okay? A man who is comfortable with himself projects something rare today: authenticity. And in a world filled with social performances, that quality becomes incredibly powerful. When you step back and look at all these advantages together, you start realizing something many men never imagined when they were younger. Conclusion. Now take a moment and think about everything we talked about today. How many men spend years believing they're at a disadvantage, when in reality, they're just entering a phase of life where certain qualities naturally start to appear? The truth is, many of the things that truly matter in dating don't come from youth. They come from experience, maturity, and the way a man learns to understand himself and the world around him. So here's a question for you. Which of these ideas have you already noticed in your own life, and which one do you still want to develop? Let me know in the comments, because I'd really like to hear your perspective. And if you want to keep learning about dating psychology, masculine development, and relationships, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss the next videos, and you'll also help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers, bringing this kind of content to more men who want to grow and level up.